enough of this socializing. Let's get down to
I
business.
know, John, you're looking dapper as usual.
Thank you.
Everybody's showing up for Mr. John and Roberto.
Everybody should know that today is John Engel's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Hey, John.
Hey, John, you look great for 70.
And with that remark, what better way to start the show? You look great for 70. I mean, what a crazy show. I feel like I'm just going to watch the two crazy blondes that, who are just on fire. You already said, Louise, that you took 68 appointments this week. Wow. We are going to have one heck of a show.
We had 41 appointments Saturday and Sunday.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy. That was just me. That doesn't count my other teammates. So yeah, it's kind of exciting.
Crazy. Agreed.
Is that you showing all of your own property? You have buyers on those?
That was just me showing 3 of my properties. Only 3.
Wow.
Okay, before we get there, Roberto, welcome.
Welcome to Boroughs and Burbs, everybody. This is where we have our comprehensive conversation about New York City real estate.
And New York suburbs, New Jersey, Long Island, Westchester County, Connecticut, Palm Beach, Miami, and I guess last week we even included LA as a suburb of New York.
Well, we'll let you slide on that one.
They should be.
And today, John, believe it or not, is episode 17. And we're going to be talking about a market pulse. And our first guest who we have for the second time is Louise Philips Forbes. We all know her as Weze. She has sold over $4 billion of real estate and runs one of the most successful teams in all of New York, not to mention the country.
And if that wasn't fabulous enough, we also have in this corner, Daniela Schlisser, number 53 in all of New York and one of the top brokers in the country, who I met last week for the first time when we got to do a show together. And I was like, wow, what high energy. We have got to get her on. So I'm almost afraid that you two are going to break the internet because of the high energy between Daniela and Louise. So welcome.
Yes. Although I can't speak like 11 languages or something that she speaks.
Neither can I. It's 5.
All right, just
We're
checking to make sure.
aspiring to 11. Work to do.
And the 5 are what, actually?
English, French, German, Hebrew, and Italian.
Goodness gracious.
I'm learning Spanish. I'm abysmal. You would think, I'm learning Spanish.
Well, I speak English, Southern, and Southern.
So what is
and that might get you further.
What is the broad stroke? What are you guys seeing just in general?
You go first, Daniela, because I have a tendency to chat.
Crazy activity. And I've seen it picking up steadily from right after New Year's, but it really started to hit in my business, an exponentially larger swing about 2-3 weeks into the year. And it's just been increasing as we track Donna Ocean's report every Monday morning, other, inventory ratings of, every week, deals, and it keeps escalating. I can feel it. It's not abstract. It's, we're seeing it out there, and most of the brokers that I speak with, that I cross paths with more, are also seeing it. It's just, and it's not shocking. I can't say I find it shocking. I think it all makes sense, but it is remarkable.
It is remarkable. I mean, for us to do $885 million in a 3-week period of contract signs is super excited. I literally sat down after 41 appointments on Sunday, and I literally couldn't talk to my husband, but I tried to sit down to try to organize my task for Monday. And I literally started to write down, y'all will laugh at me when I show you but these are all the deals that I just started, I got offers on. And, I'm at 10 transactions, and most of those have 2 offers on them. And we're talking 11 point, by close to $12 million down to 840, where, by the way, I duped a contract in a nanosecond. They signed it in 2 days. So I don't know what's going on, but I'll tell you, cash is king and spring is sprung.
It's pretty crazy out here as well. We have scarce inventory. And so, and maybe you have scarce buyers. And so when they appear and they appear ready,
No.
no?
Not anymore. Yeah.
No
No.
scarcity.
Everybody is
That's what-
there.
yeah.
There's both two things that are happening both emotionally and through an educational process, is that our buyers and our sellers are restless, and they're prepared to make business decisions, and they're prepared to make decisions. And you know, I am negotiating right now on a piece of property that's been on the market, and everybody's like, well, how many price reductions have you made since COVID? I was like, 0. And I have just, every listing, if it's priced properly, and not all of them are, but they have their own life cycle.
Mhm.
And so I have an apartment that's been on the market since August. I have 3 bids on it today,
Right.
and I didn't change a thing
Yeah.
other than I believed in my number, and I kept saying to my owner, just be patient. I don't need 22 buyers. I need 1. So being data driven and having faith in the process and understanding human nature, for us who've lived through emotional cycles, whether it's September 11th or financial, chaos from the Great Recession, we always knew New York was going to come back. And it's almost like the New York, the news, trying to sell newspaper. They're like a day late and a dollar short. And, I'm excited to see the excitement that we've all been anticipating it as professionals, but now it's actually happening.
How much of this is seasonal? Typically, I think even nationally, NAR tracks statistics that the season begins in February. And every year, it seems to me, realtors say, wow, look at all this activity. And they get excited in February, and they forget that that's what happens in February. And then by May, all the decisions have made and people go on vacation. Is this still a seasonal cycle?
I mean, do you want to go, Danielle? But I have a pretty strong
I'm not
opinion
feeling
on
it
that.
that way. I personally, I'm not feeling it that way. I also I haven't been feeling those traditional cycles in the past couple of years. My business in the last few years has started later than it usually did, annually speaking. Forget about 2020. But before that, I would say it started really, really kicking in closer to the end of February, which is a lot later than it used to. And it would go all the way through August. I couldn't go on vacation, take a long August vacation for years, because those seasons were off. And I think what's happening now is much less a function of the traditional, and I'm interested in what you think, Louise. I think it's much less a function of the traditional, seasonal cycle than it is what has been happening in the market specifically. COVID, the vaccine rollout, people having been on the sideline and just ready to buy, sellers understanding now and meeting the market better. And that's true of new development as well. I mean, the numbers that are coming in from new development sales, the new development, the projects are meeting the market too. So there's just a confluence of buyers and sellers meeting better, everybody being super eager rather to transact. And a lot going on outside of that that's promoting that. The vaccine, a new administration, whether it's the one you wanted or the one you did, not the one you wanted. Election years are always tough. So we had an election year, we had COVID, we had, interest rates are starting to climb. People want to make sure they get in before that. I think it's more about what's happening now than it is about the season. Weze, what do you think?
Well, I think that it's interesting for myself. I've always kind of felt like I was my own test center, because my business is so diverse. I do development projects. I also do $650,000 exclusives and buyers, and I do $20 million pieces of business. And so I feel like I get this opportunity to look at a bird's eye view of a market as it starts to trend. And my feeling is that I have had steady business. I think that the surge that you're talking about, John, has continued to be active. In fact, we all remember pre-COVID, we had traction in November and December. I did 7 transactions in December, the week of Christmas, pre-COVID.
Mhm.
So I think that is that February conversation that you're talking about, like, oh, is this the normal surge? I just think that people have been sitting on the sidelines. We had a recovery in the market, in a construction boom that we had never experienced in decades, from 2015, at the bottom of the market, from 2009 when Lehman collapsed, to the third and fourth quarter of 15. That was too fast of a recovery. And so we really have been plateaued and declining for 4 years. And if your numbers, and depending on the niche that you're working in, I can demonstrate that over and over and over. And it's interesting now to look at, you have this consistent data that's coming out every Monday from Donna, who's such a rock star. And I think it's really become a very prevalent and obvious data that the condominium market in prime locations like, Park Avenue and the Upper East Side, people don't want to deal with the co-ops. And if they don't figure out how to be more in the solution of construction, in the solution of board approval, in the solution of alterations, in these summer rules and no cash, no financing buildings, their assets are gonna drop like fire.
Back to the seasonality just quickly. I think the seasonality from last year, all the timelines got pushed away. I think there was pent up demand that is intensifying our normal business cycle, but I think it's slowly starting to fall in line with the business cycle, except that the peaks and valleys will be muted because people are still not going away. 2022 summer, people are going to be like, I'm going to Saint-Tropez, and it literally it will slow. It will be a slow summer and that type of thing, and it'll come back into place. But I think that it's still moderate. I think it's going to be extremely busy into summer, but still through summer, while people are trying to place themselves for the school year of the fall and everything else that's going to happen. What I'm really curious about is to see what happens in the fall if it slows a bit in the fall, where people are kind of like the exodus. Everybody who left, and then it's slowed. Is it going to slow? And it's also going to be exacerbated by the fact that we have our mayoral election. And how is that going to really, really affect?
Thank God.
That is a huge wild card.
Sorry, that was probably inappropriate.
No, go. I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah, no, this mayor has not been helpful to our industry, to our city. I don't disagree, clearly. I don't actually think that, in terms of what you were just saying, Roberto, I think it's very optimistic, and I would love to share your optimism to think that we'll all be in Saint-Tropez in August. I don't know that our summer's going to be in
2022.
Oh, just because we're going to be able to travel.
Then yes, okay. I thought you were
nothing.
Not this summer. It's like it's here to calm waves. Next year, it's going to be back to the cycle.
But I think we're going to have, on the real estate piece of it, I think this is going to be quite a year.
For 2022, when people can leave, that takes pressure off of investing in our homes. Is that what you're saying, Roberto?
I'm saying that there's less intensity. There are fewer people in the marketplace. Like people tend to, the typical market cycle was that January, people would get settled in the beginning of January. By the end of January, people are out at open houses. They start making offers. They start losing things. Things get super intense. February, March, April, it starts to settle a little bit because people have bought or given up or whatever the case may be. Some of the family-sized apartments start to come into play for families who want to be settled by the end of the summer. That happens. By June, it slowly starts to settle. July and August used to be kind of super quiet, except for the foreigners that were in town looking for pied-à-terres and things like that, people from Italy, whatever the case may be. And then the fall market was super short. It's after Labor Day till even before Thanksgiving. And depending upon where the Jewish holidays fall, that could break up the momentum, any momentum there was. And then it would literally, people, once you get to Thanksgiving, people would be like, I'll I'll check in again on this after the holidays. I'm busy. And then, so the best 2 times to really buy were really July, August, and, Thanksgiving to January, 15th, typically.
I don't know if I agree with that.
From a
but
standpoint
I
of negotiability, absolutely.
Oh, negotiability, yeah. But the piece though, when you talk about now the anticipation of when people can start to travel and leave, that you anticipate an ebb, I think my thinking is that ebb is going to be significantly, I believe, balanced by all the people that can finally come and buy. I have so many foreign buyers that have been dying to buy, are petrified that they're missing out on opportunity, and they are.
But
And they are.
if you look at what's happened to money, in Israel and the deals that I can't service them enough. They're like, here, my brother wants to buy this, put an offer in for us, because their dollar is up 30%. So that's some of that, what we're experiencing.
Agree. And I think that that's going to be a big piece. I think when foreigners can finally come back, those who don't want to buy sight unseen. I've only done 2 sight unseen deals during COVID, only 2.
Only 2 this week?
I did 1 this week. No, I did 1 sight unseen this week, and I did another one in January. That's it. And I have a lot of foreign buyers, and most of them, they say they'll do it. They say they'll do it, at least mine. They say they'll do it, show me, FaceTime, do me, run me numbers. And then at the 11th hour, and I totally get it, they say, I got to see it.
Yeah.
So in my business, at least personally, I know that once the borders open and my foreign buyers can come in, and I don't imagine that I'm unique in this, that there will be a deluge of foreign activity that we haven't seen to date.
I totally agree, because the overwhelming majority of the volume we've had has been purely domestic demand.
Purely.
And I have a quick question for all of us in this conversation. I heard when you have the news, like, dropping negativity and talking about the pied-à-terre tax and, the likelihood of that, and how are you all handling? First of all, I'm not hearing that right now. I just sent 2 deals, and I will say that for all the growth that you experienced, John, and out in the suburbs, those people are taking that money and bringing it into the city on a down market. So they're selling high and they're buying down, which is brilliant. Mm-hmm. And not everybody, like when you buy low, you usually, it's rare that you can actually buy high, sell high. So I think that after the 4th person knocked on my door in Woodstock to sell my house, I sold it for 26% higher than 4 brokers told me it was worth in January before COVID.
Right. Yeah, I bet.
Let's talk about pricing, because all the agents are using historicals to price houses. And therefore there's a tendency, not just with that house, but across the market to, in New York and in the suburbs, to price too low. Are you seeing that? Are we pricing too low?
I think that we're luckier to have a vertical market that, it's you're comparing somebody's, cul-de-sac 2.5 acres to on a busy street, 1 acre is much more harder to formulate than this is on the 8th floor and this is on the 28th floor. Personally, this is just my nickel.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But we have, it's much easier. Yeah, it's much easier for us to submit our values, to demonstrate values, and for people to really get a handle on our values. And so we're not shooting as blind as not that you're shooting blind, but we have really, situations like, 7A versus 10A. It's so easy, and you can approach it so mathematically for per square foot renovation cost, per annum, either increase, decrease market value. It's much easier for us.
But I do think you can monetize real estate taxes, like your taxes in Rye compared to your taxes in, I don't know, where do my kids play hockey? New Rochelle. Largemont taxes to New Rochelle taxes. You can monetize asking prices and things like that
Right.
around the school districts. But I would imagine that, I have just conditioned myself as a data-driven individual. I go back to peaks and lows. I don't care if I go all the way back to September 11th and go to 2006 and then look at 2009 and look at 2015 and look at the life of an asset.
Mhm.
And I believe that in that you can also assess the time value of money. Remember what was happening when that person sold that apartment in the world around us. And I try to take it, you present the data, but then you also present the emotional, like you're educated. So why are you focused on exactly paying the lowest purchase price because of what's going on in the world around us than you purchasing the right apartment?
Yep. People looking for great deals instead of great homes. That was a real.
But the issue with that, I don't know if you've seen this in outside of the city as well, but what I'm sure I would imagine Weze has been seeing as well, and you probably, Roberto, as well, is in the city, those buyers are losing things now finally, one after another. So the ones who are hoping to, it's not bottomed out enough, and I always tell my buyers, by the time you can identify the bottom, it's behind you.
I
You
think
can't. It's gone. You've missed it. And in this case, they've missed it. What you're looking to do, they've missed it. What you're looking to do is avoid the increase that's forthcoming by every single economic indicator that we have. And buyers did not get that, in my experience, until this season now, until these past 4 weeks. Now they get it.
The last 4 weeks. Amen, sister. It's interesting. There are brokers that are out there, our colleagues that are literally lobbying 40% below the asking price, all cash deals. And by the way, they're not even bothering to bring their client, show their client. They're just making the offers. And in my 85 appointments that week, I had some broker and I'm panicked. Like, how did I not know this person liked the apartment? And I'm looking for their name. And I'm looking and I'm like, I'm sorry, did you show them the apartment? Did I miss that? And she's like, no, we haven't seen it. And I was like, have you even seen it? And, I think it's just interesting that now I could have tolerated that in last April or last June even, but now I'm just like, well, you just kind of look stupid,
It's not even worth your time.
Right.
Anyway,
I have a question for my two luxury experts that I learned last week out of Miami, and I don't understand it. In Miami, there is the power of the brand name building, the Armani building, the Fendi building, the Porsche building. In New York City, I don't think we've seen that phenomenon, and I don't understand why.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. 15 CPW has that. 432 no longer has that.
That's different. It's created its own brand in itself. That's an identity. It's not a commercial brand. It's not LVMH, the LVMH building. It's not,
Why don't we get that in Manhattan?
Because we had enough of it with Trump, and that's it. And now they're scraping letters off the building.
True. So we've had one experiment that didn't end up so well, but it seems to me there's a lot of room in the Manhattan market, especially since both of you have said that you're looking at a foreign buyer coming back into the market, and they have to evaluate what is quality, what is luxury.
You have to realize that those kinds of opportunities usually become an anchor to a location, and that acquisition price matters. And you think about how many times Trump licensed his name all over the world. Well, he's getting a piece for the rest of his life. Whether it's, we did the Philip, they had that in the financial district. They attempted to do that.
What about the Baccarat condo hotel on Fifth Avenue? Is that considered kind of along the same line?
It was quite successful.
Yeah.
And so I would say to you that was a very successful opportunity to put the hotel in the base and to use that historical brand to complement an asset. But you got to remember, I'm sure there wasn't a big exchange of money on the licensing of it, the way that I think these hotels are going to be experiencing it in Miami. I mean, I just got back from Miami a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was 3 weeks ago, and Old South Beach is not at all what I remember it. Lower Fifth is amazing, and 30s, 40s, 50s in Collins. I think it's interesting, but I do think there's a market for it, but I just don't think we're going to see it on the scale of that because acquisition.
I also don't think that it's a function of the New York real estate property persona, so to speak, in the way that it vibes in Miami. We've got stately, historic buildings with cachet, locations with cachet. That's where the branding on Manhattan property is. It's not on what you can prop up that can be swapped out with another brand at a certain part of Collins. That's not the way New York City property is viewed and valued. If anything,
globally, particularly,
but 100%. And I think if anything, it bites people in the ass, and you'll try and talk a sponsor out of trying to brand a building in too kitschy a way that will diminish its perceived value in New York City, whereas that could have translated super well in South Beach.
I mean,
it's much more risky. It's much more risky to do that, and there's far less control here over the brand.
Yeah, and I just want to take an example and speak to it for a second. And you think about 220 Central Park South.
Yeah.
Never officially on the market. Mm-hmm. A $3 billion asset that interviewed the likes of Sting before he was granted a contract. Mm-hmm. Well, that was reverse brilliance in marketing.
It was.
It was. So
they made it so damn hard to show.
So I think it's interesting that psychology operated for New York. I thought it was just interesting, but I think that was also perfection and timing.
And location. They leveraged an extraordinary location.
I don't agree with you on that.
I
actually think that
the limitation on the park frontage.
I don't agree.
Doesn't blow my skirt up at all.
Yeah. And I don't think, and I am concerned for the people that I have that have bought there. I mean, people buy there because they love it and it's wonderful and the life quality will be great. And how can you be unhappy? I don't think that they are going to kill it market-wise the way something like, for example, 15 CPW did at all. And I think it's because of the location. I think that once this car has been driven off the lot over a few years, it is not going to, the value is not going to hold.
15 Central Park West was called the Limestone Jesus. So
phenomenal. And it's still phenomenal.
Yeah, it really is.
Phenomenal.
I mean, we've seen architectural names in London, and that took off, and it's a distinctly London thing. It became so done in London that they stopped. They said you can no longer name these buildings, after household objects. That's what they do in London because that's British humor. In Miami, they like to, wrap their arms around Armani or Fendi or a fashion house. And what I hear you saying is we have the Dakota, and we have Hudson Yards, and we have 220, whatever it is you just said.
We've got Beresford, we've got the San Remo, we've got
10 Gracie Square, 740 Park.
Yeah, we have a lot, but the identity, that's the distinction. The identity and the cachet of these buildings is not tied into some brand. It's tied into the building and the location and the
exclusivity.
Exactly.
And is it because
it's
we're
also
not
tied
building
in
new product, and it's really a phenomenon of new product when they have the Gherkin it's a new building in London, or the Armani, it's a new tower in Miami. And we're already 98, 99% built in Manhattan.
Well, no, that's not true. I mean, Bloomberg in his 12 years rezoned 40% of the land mass. Why do you think we've had the construction boom that we've had for the last 15 years?
Right.
You know, restarting all those collapsed deals that took place in 2006, 7, and 8. Remember when there were 421As, and if you had your pilings in, you could get a 100% tax, tax discount on your real estate taxes for new construction. And then they changed it to, low income housing certificates, et cetera. So we're not 90% built. And I think it's an interesting transition that has occurred in my 31 years of doing this, where, I just was talking to one of my owners that's on East End Avenue that has quite a significant, elegant home. And I did a whole analysis of 26 transactions from 5 million to 15 million in contract from Fifth Avenue to Lexington. And they were, I want to say, of the 26, they were like 19 were all condos. And when I did searching for condos from Lexington to East End Avenue, there were 0 co-ops. So there's something that's happening around that product
I agree.
and choice that it used to always be like, well, if you can't get in a co-op, you have to pay more money to get in a condo. And I think that people are looking for lifestyle, but also I don't want you looking up my skirt.
Mhm.
What's mine is mine. And if I'm going to pay what I need to pay to live in your building, but what's mine is mine. I'm not, So I think that's also sort of an interesting trend that's shifted. Michael, I know you were trying to say something.
I agree.
Naming was also historical in this city. Park West Village became the Ohms and the Vogue. Down in the village, down in Soho, okay, and in Tribeca, in the village, you had the Silk Building, you had the American Thread Building, okay, you had the Cast Iron Building, okay. So it was more historical and usage in nature, and today's world, okay, is more modern. Okay, you didn't have to name 220 Central Park South. You didn't have to name 111 West 57th Street. Okay, you didn't have to name them. They were known by their addresses. That's all they needed was their address.
By New Yorkers.
Billionaires Row didn't need anything other than the address.
Not to us country bumpkins. We don't know 220 from our.
We weren't, as long as they sold out, they didn't.
Well, John, you need to come to New York and let me take you to lunch and I'll take you there.
So let's talk about that. Is the heyday of Park Avenue, Fifth Avenue, pre-war co-ops, is it gone? I know they definitely have a challenge because there's so many other options. They used to be the only game in town. Now there's so many other options. Granted, they're expensive, but what will it take for them to come back? What I personally feel is the old designs have, in the master bedroom, they have little tiny bathrooms. There's a toilet, a tub, and a sink. That's it. The way people live today, you go to any of these new buildings, you go into the bathroom and you have 2 sinks and a tub and a shower and a different room for your, toilet. And, there's, it's, the metrosexual, this, that, and the other. And even men are using ointments and creams and you're spending your time in your bathroom. 740 Park, unless you do a major renovation, you have a bathroom this big. That's really difficult to change.
It's not that difficult in my mind.
It's not that difficult.
It's not that difficult if the building allows it.
That's what have to happen.
That's the difference. And
Yeah.
the difference is, I mean, I
That's
take
the whole
on,
point.
No, you go, Weze, and then
you go ahead.
I've been having conversation with co-op boards, many, and this is something that I have submitted for years now, at least 2 years. You will not be competitive. You are losing market share and you will continue to lose market share exponentially if you don't make purchasing easier. And there are ways, even for buildings, even for your most discerning Park Avenue, Fifth Avenue building, that wants to scrutinize financially, they can scrutinize financially. They don't have to be all cash. That's absurd. They don't have to, they can allow purchases in trust. Much of what they are doing, even if they tell you, we want to make sure that the shareholders, we have exposure, are viable, there are ways to do that without telling somebody you have to put down 100%, and you've got your financially savvy guy saying, or woman saying, actually, I'd rather put down 20 and put my money in the market, which is shooting up exponentially, or invest here or invest there. So these are things they're going to have to do, and they can do it. They can also, they can create amenity. I mean, some of them can't create amenity space out of nowhere, but there are decisions to make. They can buy up second floor units if it's important for the value of the building, and create a gym. That happens in co-ops all the time. Something becomes available. The co-op has to make a savvy financial decision and say, this building needs to have this for all of us to have our asset increase in value and be competitive in value. And these are the things we're going to have to do.
So I'm going to add to that, because I have, based on converting something like, I don't know, 17 or 18 buildings, I really have taken on this idea, and that it's sort of my responsibility as somebody who's been a board member in my own building and been a part of creating a community in my conversions, that, setting the tone and the philosophy is partly my responsibility in my own building, and advising my buyers when they are investing in these buildings to be a part of that community. And so I mean, I can go from 1100 Park being an all cash building after 1954 to now being a 50% cash building, consulting with 114 East 72nd Street, making that was a 50% cash building, who used to want 2 times liquid assets. This is a 1970 post-war building that maybe it's earlier than that, but in any event, they now are a 35% cash building, and they don't have a formula for post-closing. So now they are actually attracting a different kind of buyer, and each of their owners have a bigger pool. Summer rules. It's like, or you can't do wet over dry. I have a phone call with one of, a very, iconic building on East End Avenue. I have a phone call with the board president to talk about wet over dry and transparency. Don't make it like, give me clarity so I can inspire somebody to be willing to put the sweat equity in here. Don't leave it unanswered. And it also means that boards have to coach their managing agents to not be so standoffish. And, it's like, if I hear a board package sitting on somebody's desk, or if it is even on the desk, it should be in their computer, for 17 or 18 days, and tell me that it actually is COVID, I'm going to shoot them, because they are of service, and they serve at the pleasure of every owner, not just who they decide to jump through hoops for.
Right.
So I think
the transparency of the construction is huge. Yeah. If you can get that, and the fact that you're reaching out and getting that knowledge ahead of time, you're killing it for your seller.
But sometimes these boards stupidly shut you down. I have an apartment that is such a good buy in theory. East 86th Street, right off of Carl Schurz Park, 525, 4-bedroom, almost 2,000 square feet. We're asking 235 now, which is great. And it's in move-in condition. Building doesn't allow washer dryers. I have tried everything, including having and it's a combination. Now, most buildings in Manhattan, when it's a combination, you've suppressed one kitchen, they'll let you put in a washer dryer instead. Not this building. And the problem, and I relate the story only because otherwise it's of no interest to anyone else, but this is an example of a co-op digging their heels in stupidly in a way that will adversely affect building values for everyone. Nobody has. Yes. Selling a family-sized apartment is going to be able to sell it in any kind of buyer strong market like the one we have today, and we get them cyclically, not allowing a washer dryer. And co-ops are simply going to have to figure out, they're going to learn, and I do think that they're learning, because I've had the question asked of me by boards, can you talk about how we can You know, it used to be me just volunteering my opinion and no one listened. Now people are asking, what can we do? We're seeing the numbers, we're seeing the market share, condo market share at 50% when they're only about, 25% of the product. What are we doing wrong? So now they're asking, and they're going to have to find ways to say yes. Whereas they were very satisfied until now to say no to everybody, no trust, no LLC, no wet over dry. They're going to have to figure out how to say, actually, you can pan the floor, you can pan the entire apartment, we can make it safe, you can do here's how we're going to figure out wet over dry. Here's how we're going to figure
Technology is there. I'm just saying, hey, Todd Gershon, honey,
Yes.
you're one of those people that took my advice and got involved in your board, and your building has a very forward thinking philosophy with a lot of combinations. And you're right. There is no reason why. I moved my kitchen to where a bedroom and a bathroom is, and I cut an 8x8 hole in the core of my building.
Yeah.
But it took me 8 years to get them to allow through the wall air conditioning. Go figure.
Yeah.
We co-op boards are tough. I had a client who was getting remarried. He married a woman who had a dog. The building did not have a pet policy. He was going to have to move. He got fed up with the building, decided to sell. But in order to get the dog in, he worked so diligently for a year to get a pet policy. They came up with a pet policy. It was 10 pages long. You had to put a $10,000 bond to have the dog. You had to pay for the extra money in order for the people to sweep the hair off of the hallways. I mean, I said, if anybody reads this, they're not buying in this building. I mean, even if they don't have a dog.
That kind of makes me want to throw up.
But buildings that are hungry are getting smarter, and I think that will expand. We just had Lisa Lippman and I had a listing at 617 West End. We each had a listing at the same time. I'd been fighting for them to allow dogs because I've been losing buyers for dogs.
Yep.
She came in, had the same fight. We joined forces, and they now allow dogs.
Good.
Because they had two brokers now telling them it's making a difference, and it makes a difference in your wallet. This is about you.
But it was two formidable brokers. Had it been a couple of other people, it wouldn't have happened.
But I do think that that's sweat equity. And if I can say to, our business is not brick and mortar. Our business is the business of relationships, and investing in them and advising, not just for the agenda of that one deal, but for the well-being of the entire community. And I think that is a different posture. I mean, I'm happy and proud that I have been invited probably last year to like 9 or 10 board meetings, annual board meetings where I had gathered there my sort of selflessly. I didn't even have a listing. But I knew somebody who just wants to understand why their building isn't selling well. And I was like brutally honest, and they actually appreciated that candor. So take the risk.
Yeah.
So what I've heard was New York needs a good mayor. And I heard that Bloomberg was good and current mayor not so good. And you have an opportunity to change mayors. So you need a good mayor. I heard that Bloomberg really did a favor to the real estate market when he rezoned. That was important. Okay. I understand that the foreigners, I guess, need to come back, and we expect them to come back, and the low interest rates. What else does the New York high-end real estate market need?
It needs no pied-à-terre tax.
Yes, that I want to talk about.
Shut down.
Well, the decision on that comes what, April 1st or something?
Is it the final decision April 1st? Or is there a
I don't know.
review
So
April
what
1st?
I'm curious from you guys, people, because it's for luxury. It's a pied-à-terre tax.
That's a bad one.
Or whatever. As we get close to that, I'm just wondering if you anticipate seeing any of your pied-à-terre buyers, foreigner or whoever, that are going to pause until that gets decided.
I don't think my people are personally, because again, my advice to my clients, whether it's in the heart of darkness of a global pandemic, is shut the noise out. You are an expert for yourself. And, if your intention is to have part of your life in New York City, or part of your assets in New York City, while I think being sensitive to policies you're more exposed in a place that, you know, is a different country than you are going to have something. I just don't think it's going to happen. And again, I know that Will Zeckendorf and our economist invested a lot of time and effort to work through the budgetary committee to explain to them that, you know, in June of 2019, when they changed the rent laws and they changed the mansion tax and the, you know, that they were buying time, but there's still a lot of other things. I think that they should be taxing, you know, a mortgage recording tax on co-ops before they do a pied-à-terre repetitive 6% tax. It's crazy.
I think the implementation of it is really problematic, which is, I think, is the biggest obstacle. But if we're not careful, if we're not all very, very vocal, something will happen and it'll be bad.
Well, they did it behind closed doors in the middle of the night, and our governor was nowhere to be found. He was like, "Oh, did that pass?" I mean, you know, it's pretty unfortunate.
I do foresee it. I'm not as optimistic as Louise. I do foresee in a certain, in the pied-à-terre ownership pool where people are using the property more significantly, like your you know, person who comes, you know, who has an opera subscription, and so they like to come for several months regularly and then they're not here for 7, or your business person that's accustomed to coming a couple of days a month. I think they'll just suck it up and pay it, and it'll be awful, but it'll become the new normal. But for people who own here, and I have lots of foreign buyers like that who own here and they come 2 weeks a year, but they like the idea of owning here. They like the investment of owning here. They prefer to own as opposed to being in a hotel. I don't know if that buyer type is going to want to pay an annual pied-à-terre tax for ownership. I don't know. I'm concerned about that.
Well, I can you imagine the $238 million 220 Central Park South transaction, you know, having his annual tax? We're just going to pay for a lot of legal fees to find the loopholes.
Yeah.
So did everybody see the Wall Street Journal headline, I guess 2 days ago? Connecticut governor says no new taxes on the wealthy. That was like a great big come on out. We're not going to confuse the real estate market with a whole bunch
But it was designed to be.
Come on.
Yeah, I hate to burst the bubble, John, but the governor just introduced a buyer's conveyance tax.
He did.
He's going to be, and it's going to be folded into the open space legislation. So we'll be doing a call to action to that soon.
Oh.
Is that going to be a one-time tax or an
Come
annual?
on back to Manhattan.
It's an ongoing buyer's tax.
So it's an annual, like our pied-à-terre tax, it's being proposed as an annual tax?
It's a conveyance tax, so it's at purchase.
At purchase, okay.
That's how they get
That's
you.
still different than an annual tax. We're really, our proposed pied-à-terre tax in its form is awful. It's as an annual tax. It's not a one shot, I'll swallow this pill. It's an annual tax that just simply, you know, significantly increases the cost of ownership for prospective pied-à-terre buyers. It's dumb. It is. It couldn't be dumber. It will so offset what these people typically pay in the time that they enjoy their homes here. The way they infuse this city economically with all of their dining, theater, shopping. It's just, the math is absurd. There is no math.
Also, the sentiment countrywide globally is that it disincentivizes people to come. It becomes less of a destination, which just bleeds to every price point.
Yeah, it does. So hopefully it won't happen.
So you want to recap, John? You have people want to ask questions. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think we should open it up to the floor. I mean, we've got, I don't know, 56 people here. You've got to have some questions.
I'm just curious to know there's a part of our business that I was not always aware of until my title chick over here, Denise, who I'm just curious, what kind of numbers are you doing right now, Denise? Denise, introduce yourself. You're muted.
Hi, everybody. I'm Denise Angelo from Advantage Title. We're swamped.
So walk me through, you and I were in Montauk hanging out, walking on the beach when we were frozen, but walk me through, the last 6 months and the last 2 months.
So I'd say the last 6 months, it was busy. It's busier now. It's
Right.
definitely the last 2 months. And there's, you see it. I mean, there's bidding wars all the time. So as far as the title side, it's overwhelming. We're having a great beginning of the year.
Is anybody seeing 1031 tax exchanges happening right now?
We haven't.
Investment. None of the investments are penciling out
No, they're not.
at all. And until the
Unless
rental
you're just
market
looking for a
comes back,
straightforward tax shelter, and you just want to get out and buy something. I have a lot of people that have rented property. They have literally taken the asset, and they're now trying. We're in contract, and they want to try to purchase what would be their primary residence. So they're okay taking a loss because they're covering $1.2 million in profit.
well, user is very different.
1031 is not the primary driver of purchases these days. I think low interest rates are a primary driver. A lot of people are trying to finance as much of the purchase as they can and take advantage of these low interest rates. And when you talk to them about selling and paying a tax bill, the sellers are saying that they anticipate tax rates, capital gains tax rates to rise. And they actually say, you know what, I'll sell the building, I'll sell the house now, pay the capital gains, because if I wait a year or two, I'll be hit with a higher tax bill.
Yeah, but some of the advising that I'm doing, and I'm thinking about my own self and my asset. I have a property in Montauk and I have a property in Bridgehampton, and my cost basis for Bridgehampton is so low, and I've had it rented for 3 years. So I'm like, well, maybe I should just sell that, roll it into an investment property, and have no taxes on $3 million and rent it, even if I take a whole loss of a year on carry. So that's the kind of 1031 that because then it would be my primary later, or not my primary, but my secondary home. So those are out there, Robert. I mean, I think.
Weze has.
I agree, they're out there.
Weze has a second home in Bridgehampton, and then that's not far enough, so she got another one in Montauk. She's hopscotches out.
I collect real estate like dresses and jewelry. I'm not Lisa Lippman in her, but her,
It's like your pied-à-terre from your pied-à-terre. It's just too funny.
Girl, what can I say?
The rental market out here in Connecticut is so good in contrast to New York that a lot of people have decided that they will rent their house out and go buy another one. And so that's contributing to the scarcity of
product
homes out here. We have New Yorkers buying second homes out here. We have Connecticut people buying second homes out here,
right,
and renting the first one, because for the first time the cash flow covers it. And so I'm speaking personally, I'm doing that, and I'm seeing my clients do that.
John, has demand moderated? I'm not saying, because I know that you have tremendous demand, but I mean, is instead of it being 8 deep of buyers, is it now 3 or 4 deep? Is the frenzy, has it settled? It has to.
No, it's increasing, it's magnifying. So today, and I can see some people on the call who know which property I'm talking about. But today, I said, I have an off-market house that's thinking about listing. Does anybody in my office want to see it? And 9 agents descended on that house in that first hour, saying, I have a $3 million client who can't find anything in the market. So they're not 4 deep. Today they were 9 deep. And when I had a $2.7 million house on Oak 2 weeks ago, 8 people saw it the day before it hit the market, and another 15 saw it that weekend. So yeah, it was shown 24 times and sold for full price. It's worse for the rentals. I've taken several of my clients out who want to rent, and they have competed with 24 other full price offers on a rental.
So what's your advice on that? How do you win? How do you win that 24 bids? I mean, how do you, they're writing love letters, they're giving, I mean, my rental in my beach house went from, 110 to 160 from last year to this year.
Right.
So I wish I could say I win them all. I've been losing some of them because my clients, maybe their credit score is not what it needs to be. Maybe they're only willing to pay asking price. Maybe they're only willing to do it for a year. So to win that kind of a lottery, you have to be willing to say, I'm willing to pay. I have a perfect score. I have a perfect recommendations, and I'll pay over asking, and I'm willing to stay 3 years.
Do your owners pay for the upkeep of landscaping, et cetera, or do your tenants?
Historically, the owner of the building does the outside and the tenants pay the inside. So they
that's a coin that you can say, offer to do this and be more attractive.
Well, there's a lot more of that going on right now. Yes, absolutely. They're taking away contingencies. They're taking away work letters. They're taking away any barrier to making the deal happen. And yet, when you're up against 24 people, you take what you can get.
That's tough. That's tough. 24 people. So talking about off market, Daniela and Louise, how are you seeing more off market activity now than 2 years ago?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And why? And can you explain why it's more attractive to buyer and seller?
So I'm going to just talk about, first of all, 2 years ago, I thought it was a conflict of interest to be proposing to a seller, you should let me sell it 3 weeks directly in my, off market. Like, what the hell is that? To the opportunity of me leveraging a relationship and reaching out and having a conversation about their personal moment in their life, and me having a really honest, not a made up person. I mean, I just did a deal for somebody in the East Village that they've been looking and looking and looking, and I've educated them. And I wrote 6 letters and I got 4 responses, and I'm selling them one of those apartments. So I think that off market is us doing what we do best and leveraging our relationships and not having a conflict of interest where you're just trying to pocket something.
I agree. And I think it's phenomenal service that we provide when our buyers can't find what they need. And we tell them, actually, I am hardworking enough and smart enough to think outside the box for you and find you what you need that doesn't look available now, but I'm going to find it.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah.
On that note, drop the mic.
It becomes necessary, because if I go to some of my clients and I say, are you ready to sell? They say, I'm not ready right now because all my kids are home. I need my space. I've been intending to downsize, or I've been intending to upsize, but not right now, not during COVID. And when you go to them and you say, but I have, through my network of agents, I know that we can sell your house. It causes them to say, I could be opportunistic. All right, if I know there's a ready buyer for my place, I'll go out in the market and see if I can find something, and I'll accelerate my plans. So we're starting to see people in Connecticut say, you know what, I want to take advantage of 2021. I'll accelerate my plans. I'll consider selling my house if you have, buyers lined up. And I'll go out there in the market and see if I can find something that'll be better suited for my life and for the next 5 years. So,
And I think it's always been of appeal to a buyer for as long as I've been in the business. The off market has always excited buyers. So to to be able to know that they're going to see something that's not on the market yet, or might not really be available, but we think the seller would be interested. Do you want to take a look? That's just exhilarating to them, I think, in any market.
But from a
Then
seller
it's nervous
standpoint,
that they overpaid.
but from a seller standpoint,
Nervous because it hasn't been listed and the price hasn't
Oh,
been.
they love that. And I snagged it and nobody else got to see it. And it's that couture dress that was never actually sold in public, but he did it behind and I've got it and look at me, and they love it.
what about for the seller?
So I actually I'm calling you later about something, actually.
Love that.
I have a West End Avenue seller who does not, for whatever reason that I can't say I fully understand, does not want his apartment marketed openly. And he said, is there something you can do? And I said, I will give it my best. I have a couple of brokers I can call that are active in the market type, and I'll ask them if they've got anybody.
You can call Lisa and me.
I got her. Yep. Yeah.
I just want to make sure before I go, because I have a booth. Oh, wait, I didn't get to ask you, Scott. What's your business? There was nobody wanted to do any work, but I bet you are busier than you can't even see straight.
Well, in Connecticut, you're definitely feeling Connecticut, and the Hamptons is absolutely on fire under construction. Connecticut and Westchester is getting very busy. The reality is there's all sorts of approval processes that have to happen too. So there was a lag over last summer going into the fall. Then they got architects and you go through the approval processes and you see it there. Northern New Jersey is very busy and again, getting more busy. So Hampton, Westchester and Connecticut and Dutchess and Green and all is getting very, 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 very busy construction wise. And New York City was quiet for a while. And now as we see all these transactions happening, you're starting to feel in the construction end more stuff bubbling. And that's the part we're trying to change the consumer's mind under it. Last year you could wait in order to get a builder on board. Don't wait now.
You can't
Do
wait.
not wait now, book early. And you see supply chain disruptions everywhere. You're not ordering stuff early. Your 1 year project can take 2 years or worse because stuff just disappears.
Wow.
So I hear that in not necessarily Southampton, but in the Hamptons, that people are trying to buy every tear down property they can to build. So what is that going to do for inventory, which there's no inventory now? What does it do for inventory, next summer, 22?
It does. I mean, it's the Hamptons has always been tight no matter what. And the right properties at the right place are a big deal. I mean, a problem in the Hamptons under construction is there's just not a lot of workers in the Hamptons. So as more business comes up, that's where you get back to the waiting periods, like the early aughts, where it's just like, we'll start your project in 2 years. And nobody likes to say that after going through periods of downturn. But it's for inventory of what's available on the buying side. I mean, Louise and Daniela will know a lot better than I will, but I mean, it's tight for anything good or reasonably priced. And I don't know when new product comes on the market.
Wow.
I got to sign off, guys. I just want to quickly just take a minute because Miss Sarah Lowenstein calling all the way from the Virgin Islands. I should be there on a sailboat with you. And Richard Buckley, I'm glad to see you, and Wendy and Todd and Denise. Mwah. Not to mention all my guys that I see every day at my office virtually.
You can't go to the Virgin Islands when you have, what was it, 14 showings today or 28 showings today?
Yeah, it was. I haven't been in the office in 3 days. It's crazy.
Good seeing you, Weze. It's
Yeah,
Wendy.
this has been really great.
Wendy and I just closed what, I don't know, $12 million deal. You go, girl.
Wendy, we need to reconnect.
National. She's an amazing banker.
I'll call out the City National Bank. but Weze, you are the best broker in the whole wide world. I love you.
Thank you, God. Love you too. All right, I'm out. Love you guys.
Thank you, Louise.
I'm doing this with you.
Daniela, thank you so much as well.
My pleasure. Great doing this with you all.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
Bye-bye.
See you all next week.
Next week.